The subject of today's episode is a method of torture that, while many, including activist groups, medical doctors, psychiatrists, and most news outlets would consider it inhumane and cruel, others, like prisons, mental hospitals, and the governments of entire countries, including one young up-and-coming politician, saw it more as a necessary life-saving procedure. Going as far back as the slave trade and the asylums of 18th century France, and all the way up to today, this method was used on suffragettes, rebels, conscientious objectors, suspected terrorists, and even one rapper. With the use of a chair and some straps, a rubber tube, and a jug of milk, this seemingly innocuous process would become the terror of many that dared participate in a very specific type of protest. From Britain and Ireland to Cuba and America, today we cover forced feeding. I'm Kevin Young.
And ironically, I'm very hungry. So.
And this is Torture. I don't know how hungry you'll be after this one. I don't know what ruins the appetite of Dan Horrigan.
Not much. I haven't actually eaten yet, so
okay.
I will still, regardless, still be hungry. Put it this way, if I could eat my dinner after watching the cheese grater scene in The Evil Dead, I can survive anything. So.
I ate sloppy joes after watching my firstborn son be born.
Yeah, okay.
So if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
Which brings me to what I had mentioned to you right before we started recording. So I've been doing, I don't know if anybody else has been, I know it can be a hassle to do so, but I've been doing our 31-day movie challenge for Halloween. And the other day was The Walking Dead. So, you have a variety of movies to pick from. And it doesn't have to be zombie. It can be vampire or mummy or Frankenstein's monster. Anything where the dead gets up and walks around. But I've been trying to do movies that I've never seen before. And it's the movie that I've always wanted to see. I just never got around to seeing it. So I said, fuck it, I'll watch it. Peter Jackson's 1992 classic, Dead Alive. Or Brain Dead for a lot of people outside of the United States.
Never seen it.
That might be the bloodiest, goriest, goopiest movie I've ever fucking seen in my life. It's not like, and it's like, you can look like Piranha 3D that has like literal truckloads of blood that were brought in for that fucking movie. That's a lot of, this was obviously fake blood and fake viscera and fake tissue and fake pus. But my God, there's so much. It's just so fucking much. And the goop, just the pus and the goop coming out of things. So I got a pretty strong stomach when it comes to that stuff, but there's one scene, and if you've out there, if you've seen Dead Alive or Brain Dead, the custard scene, I don't know if I'll ever eat custard again.
Did you ever hear that thing about 30 Days of Night, which is a fantastic film? About there was so much blood that they had to bring in shredded paper to cover up the snow. because it just turned to sludge.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more um whatever you want to call it in this movie. I mean, it's fucking, it's just, it's the most absurd movie I think I've ever seen. I fucking loved every second of it. It was great. It's like I can't
Nice.
believe this is
So,
a Peter Jackson movie.
Brain Dead, you said, yeah?
Yeah, I think over where you're at, it's called Brain Dead. Here, it's called Dead Alive. There was another movie called Brain Dead that came out like a year before over here. So they changed the name so for copyright issues and so it wouldn't get confused. Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've not seen it, but I know it if you get me. I've seen.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly what movie that is. I've never watched it though.
there's the lawnmower scene in Sinister. You seen Sinister?
Not yet. No, I'm thinking. I keep hearing
Oh
about something with
God,
the lawnmower scene.
man, you
Um,
gotta watch that fucking movie with the lights off, with your wife, with the TV, big ass TV, just like right there in front of you. Oh
yeah.
God, that fucking movie will destroy you. But there's also a lawnmower scene in Dead Alive, and it's completely different than the lawnmower scene in Sinister, but much more bloody.
All right.
It's just, it's so, from start to finish, it's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever watched. And I will watch it again at some point because it was fucking great. Just so much.
I might
But
watch it myself at some stage. So I don't think it'd
you
be
have to, dude.
her
You
jam.
gotta watch this. You gotta watch. And to go fucking ape shit over a movie that came out in, '92, uh, is a little odd. But dude, for fuck's sake, a guy, a guy's entire internal organs come to life and chase another man around a house.
That's like Evil
And, he,
Dead type shit.
and even the colon farts. It's got a lot of those Evil Dead vibes. Some of the puppets that are in it do bring on Sam Raimi Evil Dead 2 vibes. Very much so. But all right.
Love Evil Dead.
But the
I saw
cuss
your wife posted something on Facebook just now, and I had to respond to it to tell her to keep it down because we're recording.
Oh yeah, she's in the kitchen doing dishes, blasting
I don't
her
know what the hell she's doing. I don't care.
whichever or whichever playlist she's listening to, either emo or party or dance or whatever. Yeah, she's in there, but I can't hear her from here. We're
I
good.
know can I, but still, she'll probably come in a couple of minutes. What dancing?
Dan said he could hear
Hi,
you from
Dan.
all the way over there. But no, if you've seen that movie, the custard scene, you know what I'm talking about. I'll never have custard. It's gonna be a while before I can eat custard again. I had
I don't. I'm
applesauce.
not a big fan of custard anyway, so I might have to
Well,
check this out.
even like pudding or anything that's like a creamy dessert.
Okay.
I had applesauce like a couple hours after I watched it, and the texture in my mouth was making me want to gag. Speaking of the devil, what do you want?
Tell him I set up yours.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. I'd nearly tempted to just Google this custard scene, just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
May as well. What the fuck? Oh, good God. What the fucking hell is it? Oh, the dear. That's just ridiculous.
It's gross, dude. After that, the whole movie is like that. The whole movie is just gross for the rest of the time. It starts off nice, it's sweet, and fairly average, but it gets nasty not too long after that. Oh, Peter Jackson.
Well.
He would go on to create what he created. All right, Dan, let's take you back to the early 1900s. 1917 to be exact. But don't worry, you don't have to travel too far away from the area you're in now. We're going to stay right there in Ireland.
What did the English do this time?
Oh, you're very astute. You're a man by the name of Austin Stack, and you've been a political activist since about 1908 and joined the IRB, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, which would later change its name to the Irish Republican Army, or the IRA. You will be arrested in 1916 for your involvement in the Easter Rising. Now, Dan, do you know anything about the Easter Rising, or is that just kind of some of that history that is brushed over?
It's far from brushed over now. It's kind of the start of the beginning of the end of British rule for us. It kind of what led to the War of Independence and stuff like that. It's extremely important part of our history.
Right. So pretty much it's an attack by the IRB along with Irish volunteers, the Irish Citizen Army, among others, on the British in Dublin with hopes of establishing an independent Ireland. Obviously, I'm making it very simplistic, but, it's a whole big story, but I'm just kind of chopping it down to the bare bones. It didn't work. The British brought in thousands of reinforcements to squash the uprising. About 485 people, mostly civilians, died. Eventually, you get there, but it takes
About 5 years.
Yeah, it takes a little while.
Yeah.
So you, Dan, or Austin, you were a part of it. So you go to jail. And you're actually sentenced to death, but it's commuted. While in prison, about May of 1917, you decide to go on a hunger strike, a very popular way of protesting the conditions of the prison at the time. You stay on this strike for a while until the prison staff decides that you've starved for too long. So, one Saturday evening, the staff bursts into your cell. They grab you, carry you off to an operation room. They throw you in an examination chair and strap down your legs, arms, chest, and neck, and then they cram a metal device into your mouth in order to hold it open. You look down to see what the doctors in the room are holding. It's a pint of milk with an egg mixed into it and a pump with tubing. The tube, a thick rubber tube, is then forced into your mouth and down your throat. You're blinded by the tears in your eyes as the tube wriggles its way down your esophagus until it hits your stomach, hopefully. Then they begin to pump the milk into your body. But because of the trauma, the speed at which the fluid enters your stomach, and the body's natural rejection of a foreign object, you almost immediately begin to vomit, covering your clothes and the chair. And you don't just vomit during the process, you continue to regurgitate the contents of your stomach well after the procedure is through. Now, the next day they grab you for a repeat of the torment, except you have a different doctor this time. Before it was a Dr. Cook. This time it's a Dr. Dowdle, a doctor that is famous for this type of medical procedure. Now, he has quite the hard time getting the tube down your throat, so your body keeps rejecting it. You cough it out, or you throw it up, or instead of it going into your stomach, it goes into your lungs and has to be pulled back out. Now, this treatment will continue until you are eventually released a month later. This is the horror of forced feeding. That Dr. Dowdle there's actually a book about this with the suffragettes and the Irish rebels and the conscientious objectors, covering all of it all the way up to like the late 1970s that I got most of this from. And Dr. Dowdle is actually a pretty big character because he was kind of the guy for forced feeding. I'm not going to cover him really, but he did a lot of it.
The number one guy they call.
Yeah, something like that. He got in trouble a lot for people under him not doing the things that they were supposed to be doing. And he got in trouble a lot because he wasn't near as good at it as he liked to think he was. He was really rough, and sometimes tubes didn't go the places they were supposed to go. But
Nice.
yeah. This is really the era of forced feeding's heyday, 1909 to the late 19 teens, specifically during the suffragette hunger strikes. British women protesting to get the right to vote would be arrested, then wanted to be seen as
Fina, for yourself the British.
they'd be arrested, then wanting to be seen as political prisoners versus criminal prisoners would go on hunger strike. But the government didn't want these women to die in prison. If they die, they'll be seen as martyrs for the cause, and the government will be seen as indifferent to the lives of their prisoners, which honestly they were, but they couldn't be seen that way.
Of course not. They already had enough bad publicity at that stage,
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be the PR guy for Great Britain at the time.
Just imagine the door. Pile of paperwork at that guy's desk.
We need you to fix something. What'd you do now? I don't know, something about a genocide. I don't know. It's a little thing. Now, for a while, the prisons would just let the prisoners go. Like Marion Wallace Dunlap, artist, illustrator, and active member of the WSPU, or the Women's Social and Political Union. She was regularly arrested for her offenses, including obstruction and leading groups of women on protest marches. In July of 1909, Marion stenciled a passage from the Bill of Rights on a wall of the House of Commons, which read, "It is the right of the subject to petition the king, and all commitments and persecutions for such petitioning are illegal." Now, police once again arrested her. Upon entering Holloway Prison, the prison authorities rejected Marion's application to be placed in the First Division, which would have acknowledged her offense as political. Entirely on her own initiative, Marion decided that she would refuse to eat until her demands were met. She found herself released from Holloway after just 4 days, because prison staff feared that she might otherwise starve. 4 days.
Yeah. That can hardly go a couple of hours.
The fact that you think somebody's going to starve to death after 4 days.
Yeah, I don't know how long it takes. Like, I know it's just massive difference between no water and no food. Like, you can survive with no food for longer than you can survive with no water. But
well, I mean, if you go back to our starvation episode, we had people who survived, a few months without food. They just whittled away to nothing. So,
a nice segue. If you're only joining us now, if you're new listeners, please go listen to our past episodes, including starvation and abassination, not just a metal band.
And all the others, and bacon.
Yeah.
Now, what seems at the time to be an inconspicuous episode in the ongoing campaign for female suffrage escalated into years of controversy over the management of hunger strikes. The WSPU quickly realized the strength of hunger striking. The tactic fit well with the burgeoning spirit of self-sacrifice attached to the militant campaign. Hunger striking was underscored by an explicit threat of martyrdom. So from 1909, other imprisoned suffragettes imitated Marion. In turn, hunger striking evolved into the standard political protest. These protests immersed prison authorities and the Home Office, a ministerial department of the British government responsible for immigration, security, and law and order, in a highly problematic predicament. Two options left to him: allow rebellious, politicized prisoners to slowly commit suicide, or release them before the completion of their sentence. Both could have proven publicly distasteful. Initially, the Home Office chose the latter option, but criticism mounted during the summer of 1909. The simple act of refusing to eat was undermining the workings of the prison and the judicial system, raising concerns that all matters of prisoners, even murderers and sex offenders, might go on hunger strikes to get released.
Let the sexual offenders go on hunger strike all they want. Like, fuck them. Yeah.
Well, but it's going to be the policy that if you go on a hunger strike, we're going to release you. I mean, you have to have very strict rules about who that works for and who it doesn't work for. That's why a lot of these women, like, we want to be seen as political protesters, because you got better. I don't want to say you got treated better, but things were a little bit better for you as a political prisoner versus a criminal prisoner.
Yeah.
And they wanted to be seen as a political plus it goes in your record of why you were in prison. And if you're in prison for criminal acts or political acts, those kind of determine what you would, how long you would stay in prison for.
So it's like trying to decide between whether or not you release good old Paul Bernardo because he decides to starve himself versus somebody on a picket line.
Yeah.
Who's, somebody from fucking, what's that, free oil crowd or whatever those assholes are, after they get arrested for blocking an electric car event. That was funny.
Yeah.
Idiots.
Well, if Paul Bernardo wants to go on a hunger strike, he can go right ahead. That's fine. Just
let me eat my fist first, and then he can go on hunger strike all he wants.
You didn't make it long before you brought up Paul Bernardo. I was hoping to be done with him. You made it all of a quarter of an episode.
It's just when you said sexual offenders is the first person I thought of. So
Dan's white whale.
That, and I have myself fixing for a good old Big Mac carbonara. Oh yeah.
Oh fuck. So the Home Office required an alternative solution. In September, Mary Leigh and others were arrested while demonstrating at a public meeting being held by Prime Minister Herbert Asquith. A judge sentenced them to 2 weeks imprisonment at Winston Street Gaol, Birmingham, where the prisoners immediately went on hunger strike. So what do? You let them starve, you set them free, or do you try something else? Well, in late 18th century France, the psychiatrist Philippe Pinel refuted a commonly held belief that insane patients never felt hungry and therefore required little food. I have never heard that before. It's one of those weird little, like, stereotypical things that you've never heard before, but apparently it's a thing. Like, when somebody would say, vampires, if you throw down a handful of rice, they have to stop and count each grain before they can chase after you anymore. It's like, where the fuck did that come from?
That's just fucking ridiculous.
It's just weird. That's a weird. Hey, he's not. He's insane. He's not hungry.
Yeah,
he doesn't get hungry. Why not? Because he's insane.
Say,
well,
hey, honey, what do you
do with one another?
Hey, honey, what do you want to have for dinner tonight? I don't know. I'm not hungry. Must be crazy. So,
I guess my wife's not insane because she gets hungry all the fucking time.
It's a very good point.
Two conflicting things here, because I'm pretty sure sometimes my wife's a little crazy.
That's when she's hungry, ironically. That's what my one is. She's crazy when she's hungry, not the other way around.
That kind of goes against the whole hangry thing.
What goes with the whole hangry thing? Oh, sorry. The concept, of the
Yeah.
insane thing. Sorry, yeah. Thought you meant our wives, but yeah. They are the quintessential concept of
Angry.
hangry.
Oh, fuck.
Anyway,
Now,
back to the news being
believing that,
assholes.
yeah, believing that hunger could have a disastrous effect on the mind, which it does, Pinnell instead ensured that his patients were well nourished. The practice of feeding patients with an elastic tube soon became the standard in French asylums. I wonder if he just tried giving them the food. He's like, I will make sure you're well nourished by cramming it down your throat. It's like maybe you just gave them a paper plate with some food on it, like some mush they could pick up with their hands. I bet they'd probably eat it.
Oh, no, they're crazy, though. So they're not
That's right.
hungry.
They're crazy, so they don't get hungry.
Yeah, you should go in with a spoon and be like, here comes the choo-choo train.
Would you like
that's
some
force
custard?
feeding. Yeah. That's extra ear in it.
Is that some pus? Bloody pus?
It's nice and thick.
Oh, God. So 19th century technological developments further promoted the use of feeding technologies. In 1868, German physician Adolf Kusemel introduced the stomach tube to medical practice after perfecting the technology by experimenting on a professional sword swallower.
Nice.
Just laying around. So might as well use them for something, I suppose. I don't know. So by the time the suffragette movement came to the British shores, forced feeding was already an established procedure in asylums. It was especially used on fasting girls who were seen as anoretic or psychologically unstable. Quote, refusal of food may be due to mere stupidity. Or no, since we're in France, refusal of food may be due to mere stupidity.
La food fafa.
Or to the restlessness and inattention of maniacal excitement. Much more frequently, it is seen as a case of melancholia, melancholic stupor, or delusional insanity. Asylum doctors came to...
That was lovely.
Wasn't it? Asylum doctors came to recognize the usefulness of force feeding for breaking the physical and emotional resolve of fasting girls and correcting the seemingly errant behavior. So if it worked on females in asylums, why not in prisons? Now, I'm going to say, before we get more into the stories of forced feeding, that there does not seem to be any rhyme or reason as to which tube the doctors choose to use. The stomach tube that went down the throat, or the nasal tube that went up the nostril and then down the throat. I looked all around.
Or the anus tube, where they did the reverse feeding. Like in South Park, the reverse eating diet.
Well, we'll get there. I looked and looked.
Right, don't have that sentence continue on like that. Get the anus tube. We'll get there with the anus tube.
You've done that before.
I've looked and
I was like, I'll say something that'll get him, and I'm like, oh, you're not too far off.
Yeah.
So I looked and looked, but honestly, I couldn't find anywhere why they would use one day and another the next day. So if I'm jumping back and forth between stomach tube and nasal tube, it's because they jumped back and forth from stomach tube to nasal tube, pretty much. So there you go. Yeah. One Saturday afternoon, a wardess entered Mary Lou's cell and forced her onto her bed. 2 doctors entered the room. Now, while Mary was being pinned down, one of the doctors inserted a tube into her nose with a funnel at the end. The tube had a glass junction in the middle that allowed the doctor to see if liquid was passing through. Now, the doctors pushed over 20 inches of the tube into Mary's body while the wardesses held her down. A pint of milk and eggs was then poured into the tube. For Mary, the sensation of being fed was intensely agonizing. She suffered throat and breast pain and a distressing sense that the drums of her ear had burst. This wasn't a one-and-done type thing either. Most hunger strikees wouldn't give up the cause after just once or twice, and as long as they refused to eat, they would be fed. Most of these feedings were done by prison medical officer William Cassels, who was the first to force feed suffragettes. Cassels would keep a close eye on his subjects and report back to the Home Office of their condition in order to legitimize and solidify artificial feeding, as they called it, as a solution to hunger strikes. But as you can imagine, he wouldn't always report everything. You know, the Home Office wanted this to work, and if bad shit came out of it, well, they couldn't use it. So what do? He would skew his reports to what the Home Office needed to hear. Or outright blame the prisoners for improper care or for their side effects from the feedings. In his private correspondence, he dismissed accusations that forced feeding caused intense vomiting. Now, he admitted that Mary Leigh once vomited for hours after he had fed her, but claimed that, this was probably self-induced. You know how you self-induce vomiting for hours on end?
It's because of assholes like this when they come out with, like, let's say, medical findings or scientific findings that people believe the earth is flat. You know, it's these sort of stupid, like, things that, like, you know, the making up of the it's just.
Or autism is new and it's caused by vaccines and all this, shit. That was all. That was refuted, by the way, for you out there. If you're listening to this, you think that, stop thinking that.
Think what you want, just don't tell me about it. You know, like.
He also refuted suggestions that prison doctors knowingly fed prisoners whose body had been severely weakened by hunger striking. He said suffragette prisoners refusing to be physically examined meant that he couldn't be held responsible if a sick patient was accidentally forced fed.
It's a trip under 20 feet of pipe fell through her nose.
He recalled that Mary Leigh had refused to answer questions about her throat and nose pain and said if a patient refused to provide information or be examined, then it was impossible for him to determine health problems such as a sore throat.
He's too busy having a fucking pint of milk shoved down her gullet. Like, you know, it's...
Don't forget about the eggs mixed
No,
in.
yeah. Like, just imagine, like, the whole egg. If they had left it, the
The-
whole going whoop through the nose. Can you imagine that?
You know,
Just mental
back
image.
in the early 1900s, the raw eggs that have not been pasteurized yet, going right into your body. Quote, I do not believe that I should be justified in forcing the mouth open merely to see whether the throat is all right. Pretty much, if a patient was injured, they could not be held responsible. He's just trying to do his job.
Sure, it's her own fault for not eating in the first place.
That's what a lot of
Apparently.
them said. That's what a lot of them
That's
said.
right. That was my assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you would just eat, if you would treat me like a human being, listen, you're not going to get what you want, so just eat.
Political prisoners, cop on. Just eat.
All you political prisoners.
Stop
and
fighting
people
for what you believe in.
And people being held in prisons offshore for no reason because they can't prove you did anything. Wake up! Start eating! Now, after she is released, Mary Leigh will take legal action against Cassell and Home Secretary Herbert Gladstone for unlawful assault in the court proceeding of Leigh versus Gladstone. Now, where Leigh and the WSPU said that forced feeding was essentially rape and against their right as competent adults to go without food, even if it meant their death, The Home Office claimed it to be a curative and life-saving procedure, and the patients were too delirious from hunger to make a rational decision on whether or not they should eat, because the feedings didn't usually start until about after 72 hours of a hunger strike. Now, Leigh would ultimately lose her trial, even though several medical doctors and psychiatrists came forward to exclaim the dangers, both physical and psychological, of forced feeding. All these people like, this is really bad. You shouldn't do this.
That's because she failed because she's a woman. Sadly,
yeah.
I'd say is exactly what it is.
I'm sure it is. Shouldn't do this. It's bad. Courts are like, you're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, you're a woman. Who are you to be telling us what to do?
Yeah, you're just anxious and hysterical.
Yeah.
You're probably on that time of the month.
You're obviously quite hungry though, so that means she's not crazy after a hunger strike though. So,
or you're pregnant. But if you were pregnant, you would eat more. Quandary. Think about the children.
The earth is flat.
Antarctica, man, it's a wall. It's keeping you from going off. Fucking NSA. They're up
so
there.
What happened to the Titanic, man? Fucking drove off the edge.
Man. You see that ship way out there? It's over the edge of the globe, man. That's the best one. The flat earthers. We have followers all around the globe.
Yeah.
Have you seen that the documentary about the flat earthers on? I think it was on Netflix, where they spend like $20,000 and prove themselves wrong.
I saw the short version of it, yeah, of that, which is so fucking funny.
I've watched the whole thing, and there's a lot of like infighting and backstabbing in that community. Like, oh, well, this person thinks this, but I think this, and then this. He got famous from this, but then they try to like undercut each other and whose YouTube videos can get the most likes and shit like that. And then they spend all that money.
We're all wrong though. Like Earth is on a disc that is on the back of 4 giant elephants, which in itself is on the back of a giant tortoise named Ashe.
Yes, it's turtles all the way down, baby. Turtles all the way down.
Yeah. Now what the hell these other assholes are coming out with? But
they don't just prove themselves wrong once; they prove themselves wrong twice, and they spend over $20,000 doing it.
Good.
It's fucking great.
See, I did say I put up Trustpilot review.
Yeah.
And it was because of the fact that I kind of nearly wouldn't want to do an ad like this without actually trying the things out. So both you and I have ordered numerous products. I have ordered, I think it's 3 of the bundles.
Yeah.
I got the beard growth bundle with the derma roller and the growth accelerator, which I will report back in on over time because it takes weeks upon weeks, a couple of months for it to properly take effect.
Yeah. Right, yeah, it's not one of those things where you put it on and all. It's like a cartoon, you put it on and it just comes out.
Yeah, it's not the Moxinel. That's what it ain't. Like, I wish it was. But I did get the shampoo conditioner bundle. I got 2 bundles of the oils also, where it has the elixir and the day tonic. So I got 2 different scents in that one of the silver tier. I think it was the Viking Storm, and I got Homir's Poem, the gold one. Yeah,
I haven't. That's the one I don't think I've tried yet. I might get it next time I order. Yeah. What's it smell like? You know?
Like sex. I don't know. Like it's really good. Like no, like Alison loves it. See, the thing is, it's got. Whenever I put on yours, I'm going through the Viking Storm one first, and she was like, "Ooh, the smell of that." And then the other day, because I wanted to test it out, what it was like, I threw on the night elixir for the Homir's Poem, and she was like, "Oh my god, that's way better!" Like, and the price difference between them was only a couple of euros, so I'll be buying the gold tier one next time around again. I think because genuinely it is way nicer, but I think they're great though because like I always used another kind of brand and stuff, and it's worked out a good chunk cheaper, and it is way better quality. This stuff is so.
You got to wait for it to be shipped to you, which can sometimes it's a lot quicker now than what it was before when they first started out. When I first got with them about 3 years ago, it took a long time to get the shipment in, and now it's a lot quicker. But for that little bit of time, you have no wash, you have no oil, and you go to the store and you get just the off the shelf stuff, and it's oil is oil, but honestly, there is such a difference between the stuff you're buying at the store for $10 and what you're getting at the Beard Struggle. That's why I keep going back to them. I
100%.
I love them. I do. Even though I've tried others, be like, I'll give this a try, see if it's any good. That's something you kind of have to do. If you're, to see how good the quality product is, you need to try something else. And every single time it's been, well, that's no good. Get more Beard Struggle.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I am now as well. Yeah. And they have a sampler kit for each of their things. They have a balm sampler kit. And
it comes with the. It comes with their standard scents that are kind of always there. Yeah. And so if you don't know what you would like, which so far I have not found one that has not gone over well with the wife, which is really what matters.
Straight.
But if if you don't know what scent you like, you get the sampler kit and you find out. You'll probably find out that you like all of them. And if you want to get that, use our exclusive discount code TORTURE19 at checkout. It's beardstruggle.com. Do what's right for your beard. Do what's right for your face. So what exactly happens to you that can be so bad during forced feedings? Well, because the idea of somebody putting a tube in your mouth and pouring some liquid down it, I mean, it doesn't seem pleasant, but it doesn't seem like it would be that fucking horrible.
I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be as bad. Well, for one, at this point, during like the suffragette era and the Irish Rebellion, many of the feedings were done through the mouth, which involved a block or a crank being placed between the teeth so that your mouth could be pried open. Now, many reported that their gums bled constantly from the repeated feedings. Also, broken teeth, lacerations on the tongue, and broken jaws. But as far as the nasogastric tube or the nasal tube goes, the nose and the nasal passage itself is kind of a delicate structure, you just bump it a little bit and it bleeds.
Yeah.
That's
it, yeah. Whereas you breach your septum, whatever the fuck it is up there, that's really sensitive.
Yeah, even if the air is a little too dry, your nose will begin to bleed. It's pretty delicate.
You know what they should have used when they're using a mouth? They should have used the good old pear of anguish. Because the doctor, I'm assuming the doctor was sitting there with his gloves on his pair of anguish because it was a glove holder or whatever the fuck it was.
Right, yeah, because that's probably what it really was. Yeah.
He's like,
well, he just looks over and he sees one of the orderlies like using it on his glove to stretch it out because it was a little too small. He's like, "You sir, give me that." And he takes the glove and he tries to shove the glove in their mouth. He's like, "No, give me the other thing," and then he shoves it out. So the nose and the nasal passage, pretty delicate structure. Force feeding is far from a delicate procedure. Sessions can begin with patients being shoved into a chair and held down by attendants. If the person being force-fed starts moving, the tube can cause nosebleeds, tissue damage, or attendants can break the nose during the struggle. And placing the feeding tube is tricky. Doctors who have performed the procedure, even on willing patients, have noted that the tube can go through the nose and then back out the mouth, which
and back out the bum.
At that point, it has to be pulled out and replaced, which, if not done slowly and with care, apparently can hurt like shit. For those of you out there who don't realize, your nose and your mouth kind of connected.
Imagine it went
way
in
back.
through one nostril and it curled back out, and then it went back in through the other one. And whoop. So it'd be like a crazy straw that you got for drinking up your milk as a
Pull it
kid.
out, go around your
Yeah,
glasses and back
yeah,
ears, back
yeah,
and
yeah,
forth.
yeah. Make the pair of they had glasses ones. They don't have a straw out of them. So be sitting there, you just get to watch the food go around your eyes. Whoop.
You do one through each nostril, then you come up to beer cans on top of your
Yeah,
head.
foam dome
I don't
extreme.
You ever seen anybody do that with a piece of spaghetti where they snort it up their nose and then pull it out their mouth and kind of do the...
God no.
I've never seen it in person, but I've seen it on TV, so I know it has to be real.
Of course it's.
But yeah, also when you put it in the nose, sometimes it completely misses going back down and will actually scratch, possibly perforate that very thin wall that you have between your sinus cavity and your brain. And it could actually poke into there, and people have said that it's agonizing, feeling like you're being stabbed with a red-hot needle in the back of your fucking nose. So I get that sounds fucking horrible. The tube can also go down the windpipe instead of the esophagus. And forcing food into someone's lungs can cause pneumonia, collapsed lung, or death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting there, a piece of hot dog floating around inside your lung.
What happened?
Yeah.
Off the old hot dog injury.
Yeah.
just eating at the ball game. Next thing I know, I'm dead. Nowadays, they can do an x-ray to see where the tube is. But back in the suffragette days, the doctor would pump a small amount of air through the tube, and they would listen to the abdomen for the sound of the hissing air. Sometimes this worked. Sometimes it didn't.
Listen for their belly button to start whistling. See what the air is. Jackpot. Start the pump.
It's just a tea kettle. You just pump the air, and it's just a tea kettle. Now, studies have shown that doctors can misidentify the placement of the feeding tube even when they see it in x-rays. Now, although people are monitored during the force feeding, even a little food in the lungs can cause lasting and debilitating damage because it's got nowhere to go. It's not.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah,
like liquid or not. Yeah, it's again just going back to like the hot dog. Imagine like a piece of chicken strip stuck in your. Like we've all eaten food and drank something, and we know the whole concept of it going down the wrong way when it, and like fuck me, I'm pretty sure I probably have a few wings sitting there. Yeah,
exactly.
I have half a pint of beer and a couple of wings sitting down there at the moment, and
yeah, imagine it being a full bottle of Ensure.
Yeah,
into your lung.
With a load of Crisco added in there on top just to make sure it all goes in okay.
They just tilt your head back and just start cracking eggs into it. Like, hope that's not going into your lung. Yeah.
Shaking your head to make you give you scrambled eggs instead.
Yeah. And in fact, it was so difficult to place these tubes that at very rare times the doctors would choose a different route to take. Like in 1914, when Frances Parker, a Scottish suffragette, was force-fed, yes, Stan, through the rectum with a nutrient enema.
Nice.
It gets worse. Then she got fed once through the vagina while in a prison. See, now the enema, I guess I can kind of get because it is connected to the rest of the digestive system. The vagina is a different system.
Like a sphincter sandwich.
It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Together. So,
that's just, again, kind of goes to show you, kind of poor concept of medicine there in that case. You know, it's people who are crazy aren't hungry, and women can eat sandwiches through their vaginas.
But then the baby comes out the mouth. Again, like in South Park. Food goes in this way, other things come out this way.
Like, what the fuck are they thinking? Like, really?
What the fuck are we talking about?
Like, What we just said makes more sense than
True.
what they thought.
I
to
don't,
be fair,
and I don't know if the vagina can absorb nutrients. I wouldn't think.
I know one thing it can absorb.
Oh, boom.
Yeah, but I don't know about that now. I don't know if you go sticking a load of fucking tapioca up there, or pesto chicken or some shit that'll actually.
Big Mac carbonara.
Yeah.
Right up there. Yeah, I don't think so. I
I
think
highly
it
doubt
would
it.
be.
Yeah.
It'd be like, again, South Park. It'd be like Kenny and the bus driver. He'd probably just get up there and rot and fall out. I don't think so.
Going to gynecologist later on, like, what's there? Why is there half a cheeseburger stuck up in here? I thought, well, let's follow medical advice from like the early 1900s France.
Following medical advice from two assholes on a podcast. Tell me, give it a shot.
Don't follow medical
Quote,
advice from most people.
Thursday morning, 16th July. The three Wardises appeared again. One of them said that if I did not resist, she would send the others away and do what she had come to do as gently and as decently as possible. I consented. This was another attempt to feed me by the rectum, and it was done in a cruel way, causing me great pain. She returned some time later and said she had something else to do. I took it to be another attempt to feed me the same way, but it proved to be a grosser and more indecent outrage, which could have been done for no other purpose than torture. It was followed by soreness, which lasted for several days. Yeah, I fucking bet. I fucking bet it hurt like shit, and it was uncalled for.
It's just stupid. To be fair. Like
stupid. Yes, it's a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that hole must lead to somewhere. Let's just cram some stuff in it and see what happens.
It goes inside the body. Must be.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they're going to be putting it in the ear.
The human body is obviously a sponge. It just absorbs no matter what orifice you put it in.
Yes.
It just absorbs everything. Simple as.
But let's say that the tube, the nasal tube or the stomach tube, goes where it's supposed to. The placement of the tube can still leave scratches to the stomach, trachea, esophagus, but let's say it gets to where it needs to. These feedings aren't done after a couple skipped meals. Now, like I had said earlier, it was usually considered a hunger strike after about 72 hours of refusing food, but that doesn't mean they start the feedings immediately. In fact, there isn't a real gauge as to when the feedings would start. They kind of just came and grabbed you at some point, which meant by that time, you were probably either entering or already in the stages of starvation that could lead to refeeding syndrome. Again, go listen to our starvation episode for more on that. Essentially, your body's no longer able to take in and digest large amounts of food. In fact, introducing large amounts of food suddenly into the body can cause anything from weakness and numbness to delirium and respiratory failure. But even before that, your body decides that there's too much at once, or the sudden influx of any substance just kind of appearing in the stomach causes a fairly quick puke reflex, meaning that the vast majority of the liquid, today it's meal supplements like Ensure or Boost, but in the early 1900s it was just milk and eggs with some bismuth and other vitamins mixed in, would make its way out of the stomach as fast as it made its way down. Sometimes this would go out the mouth, and sometimes, especially with overfeedings, it would go into the lungs. It would happen again after the tube was quickly pulled out, and many times would last for hours afterwards. I mean, you're not doing them any service by giving them all this fucking liquid because they're puking it out anyway.
It's like the overflow in your water tank.
That's
exactly
up into your
lungs.
It's exactly what it is. Well, and I don't have it in my notes, but I had read that in like within like 10 or 15 minutes, they will introduce, it was like 10,000 calories into your body.
Nah,
Just,
fuck that.
just an insane amount of, and this is liquid, just
yeah.
poured
I
into
was
your
gonna
body.
say your body would go into shock nearly, like with that.
Do you
like
know how
sudden...
much liquid it takes to get to that many fucking calories? It's like, Christ.
Like,
That's gallons of milk.
But yeah, it's similar to the whole dehydration thing as well, though, isn't it? Like the way you're not supposed to drink much.
Yeah,
like a little
yeah. If
bit.
you're
Like,
dehydrated,
I see people dabbing water on their lips and stuff like that instead.
Like, take sips. Don't guzzle. Take sips. Small sips. Because your body will reject it almost immediately. Then yes, in case you're wondering, people did die from this. There's a man by the name of Thomas Ashe in 1917 went on hunger strike in Ireland. Thomas was serving a 2-year sentence of hard labor for sedition when he went on a hunger strike in protest against the prison authorities' refusal to grant him political prisoner status. After a bout of feedings and regurgitating foamy blood, he died in the hospital attached to the prison. Now, there's a whole other thing about they made him sleep on a cold ground with no blankets and no shoes, and he probably already had pneumonia when they started it. But at the end of the day, the force feeding is what ended up killing him. Because he apparently had like a weak heart or something. But
all right.
They claimed he had a weakened heart. It was pneumonia that did him in. Even though bits of milk were found in his lungs.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
So, that was there already.
Yeah.
That's from a different thing. That's something he does on the weekends. That has nothing to do with us.
He's known as the milk snorter. It is.
Have you seen this guy work? It's really sad that he's dead because that show is amazing.
Liquid cocaine. So it is.
Liquid cocaine. The negative press that came from the death seemed to discourage prison doctors from feeding in Ireland. So prisoners would be transported over to England, where the doctors weren't so scared off. Like, those pussy Irishmen don't want to force feed people. We'll do it over here.
Yeah, sure. Probably would have just gone over the border up north. I'm not sure. Well, what year was this?
1917.
All right, then no, there wasn't no north then.
Now it would be about a year later, even in England, it had become broadly agreed upon that forced feedings was unethical, so prisoners only had 2 options left. Prisons only had 2 options left. Early release, which was allowed by the Cat and Mouse Act of 1913, which allowed for early release of prisoners who were so weakened by hunger striking that they were at risk of death. They were to be recalled to prison once their health was recovered, where the process would begin again, or they could simply allow the starvation to run its course. At the time, hunger strikes were most popular with political prisoners, suffragettes, Irish rebels, conscientious objectors to the World War. But what if the thieves and murderers started striking? You couldn't force feed them anymore. Did you dare let them loose and hope that after they get their health back, they could be re-arrested? So in 1918, officials began to inform strikers that they would neither be force-fed or released. If you starved, you starved. Or you could just give the people what they're asking for. You know, it's not like they're asking for a whole lot. It's like, I want to be seen as a political prisoner. I think you're just gonna have to starve to death. I don't know. That's too far above.
It's like I've already filled out the paperwork. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that again.
Can I just get some new bedding? Can I just get a fresh blanket and a pillow to sleep on?
Yeah, like I said, paperwork.
See, we've already told the cafeteria to like not give you food anymore, and this would be really like weird because Joe's got this thing with the lunch lady, and then I kind of like get into it. So I think you're probably just gonna have to die. Yeah, you probably just die.
While he's sitting there eating a yogurt pudding,
big bowl of custard. Oh, fuck. But can you imagine the backlash nowadays if somebody went on a hunger strike and the prison went, you know what, he killed 9 people, he ate their faces, but he went on a hunger strike, so we're going to let him loose. Don't worry, though. Once he feels better, he's been told he's got to come back.
He promised us that he will.
He promised us. He told me. He pinky swore. That is bonded. We did a spit handshake. He's blood brothers with me now, so I know he will come back. Don't you worry. Whether he kills anybody in the meantime, I don't know. That doesn't matter. And this isn't the first or the last time in history we see forced feeding. Like said earlier, it became quite popular for use on prisoners in asylums, mostly in France, in the 18th century. And yes, they were just as much prisoners in those in prison, more than they were patients. At the time, anyone from the severely insane to those with schizophrenia to those with what we would today simply be known as autism or a form of ADHD or even known lesbians could be admitted into asylums. And none of these people were seen as competent because, well, they were in an asylum. You're in an asylum, you know, it was one of those, well, they could say they don't want to be fed. They can go on a hunger strike if they're competent. But if they're in an asylum, they don't know any better. So they can't go on a hunger strike.
Yeah, they're idiots.
No
or they're
rational
crazy. Or they're not hungry anyway.
Yeah.
So.
You can even go on the slave ships that traveled over the Atlantic and find Africans that refused to eat in protest of what was happening to them. Now, they were forced fed, not with stomach tubes, but with a device called a speculum aurum, which would force the mouth open so food could be crammed in.
Nice. That's wonderful. You little shit. Sorry.
That's what they said to the slaves on the boats.
Little shits. Have my
Just eat the hardtack. Eat the hardtack that we've given you. I don't like it. Eat it anyway. I don't wanna. Get the speculum. God, fuck. Now, even though going into the 1920s, the process of forced feeding was seen as unethical, it took until 1975 to be prohibited by the World Medical Association in the Declaration of Tokyo, where it was seen as torture, as it may be extremely painful and result in severe bleeding and spreading of various diseases via the exchanged blood and mucus, especially when conducted with dirty equipment on prison population. However, not every country has listened to the WMA, like Canada, that outright rejects the declaration and force-feed inmates against their will if they reject nourishment. Israel, which passed a law allowing force-feeding in 2015 in response to a hunger strike by a Palestinian detainee, Mohammed Alan, even though the doctors refused to do so. I'm going to get into a big whole thing about Israel and Palestine right now. We're just going to skip right over that because that's a whole other
sensitive subject right now. It's been sensitive subject for the last 30 years. Yeah,
80 years.
I'm bad at math. Okay,
1948. That's like like when you're thinking 1990. Oh, that was like 10 years ago. No, it was like 30 years ago. Fuck you. It was 10 years ago.
My apologies to people for not getting that math right on that.
Right. Greece, where force feeding was ordered by the courts against hunger strikes at different times, even as recent as 2021, to stop the 65-day hunger and water strike by Demetrius Kovanadis. The doctors there refused to do so as well. United Nations War Crimes Tribunal at The Hague approved the use of force feeding of Serbian politician Vojislav Šešelj, saying it wasn't torture, inhumane, or degrading treatment if it's medically necessary to do so. Bullshit, but okay. I mean, it's bullshit. Still degrading and in torture, even if you think it's medical. And that's it. There's no other countries that do it. We could just skip over any other. That's it. That's
All right. I'm pretty sure there's probably going to have to be tons of it happening in Guantanamo, I assume.
Oh,
Everything
yeah, that's
fucking
right. That's
happens
right. I
there.
forgot. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot. The
That's
United
international
States,
borders, though, so technically y'all ain't doing it. You know?
The United. Well,
Technically.
yeah. So the United States is one of the worst countries for this. Let's go back to 2006 and head down the Cuban way to a little patch of land that the U.S. has control of, a little oasis in the tropics known as Guantanamo Bay. I hear Harold and Kumar spent a little bit of time there once.
Was that the second one, was it? I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah. Was
Yeah,
it the second one?
It must have been because I've never seen the second one. I don't recall them being in Guantanamo.
That was the second one, and then the Christmas movie was the third one, if I'm right. I don't know. First one was great, but the rest of them were okay. Now, at the time, there were outbreaks of hunger strikes through the prison for various reasons. Most living conditions, freedom to practice religion, the fact that they were being held captive for literally no reason because most of them have no, charges against them. But, whatever. And feedings to combat malnutrition can be found back all the way in 2002. But they were done in hospitals under strict doctor care, and they were either put under sedation or at least heavily medicated to ease the discomfort. And they weren't just given a bunch of food all of a sudden, which made them suffer from refeeding syndrome. They were given medicine via IV that would get their electrolytes and glucose levels back to at least passable before they got fed enough over the course of several days to get them back to a non-lethal weight. But 2005, 2006, hundreds of prisoners held without charges gone on hunger strikes. Pressure grew on commanding officers overseeing the prison to end the protest. So, going by what he himself had said, before he said that he didn't say it, the commanding officer went to a bright-eyed, young, up-and-coming naval lawyer fresh out of Harvard by the name of Ron Desantis, who told him,
Why do I recognize that name?
Oh, that's right. He's the fascist that's ruining Florida. He's ruining Disney World for everyone. He said, hey, you can actually force feed them. And then went on to tell them the rules about what they are allowed to do. Now, whether they stick to those rules or not is up for debate. But, yeah. He will
because
now say...
I'm pretty sure that's like the motto of Guantanamo right there. It's like, here's the rules. Stick to them if you want to.
We stick to the rules? Who put a question mark at the end of that sentence? You know Ron will read anything. He comes out, he's like, because first he's like, oh yeah, it was my idea. I ordered it. And then now if you ask him, he says that he had a very small part. He was just a lawyer. He nobody had to listen to him. He just had a suggestion. But at the end of the day, even according to him back then, it was his idea to start force feeding these prisoners.
I'm sure back then that kind of suited the political agenda. And now, with the woke world we live in, I'm sure it's...
I mean, he'd probably steal some of Trump's voters if he told everybody that he ordered them to force feed the terrorists in Guantanamo. You people at home can't see it, but Tan's cat is all up in his fucking face.
He's rubbing against the microphone now, sorry. He got up onto my lap and he's sitting there. I had to keep muting my microphone because he's just sitting there going... And I looked down and he was just like this, staring at me. I was like, oh God, he's going to come up and get me now in a second. Next thing I'll just see is this. It's like, here he comes. Get down from there. Come on.
And so the feeding started. In the memoir of Monsieur Adifi, Adafi, former Guantanamo Bay prisoner, goes on to say about his experiences, quote, I was informed that the U.S. government was determined to break the hunger strike. The doctor in charge, a colonel, told me that he did not care if I said I was innocent or protesting mistreatment. He was there for one thing, to make me eat. I refused and was immediately and violently strapped into a chair so tightly that I could not move. A nurse forced a thick tube into my nose and down my throat. My nose bled, and the pain was so great that I thought my head would explode. The nurse would not stop. Instead, he began pouring Ensure into a feeder bag attached to the tube. Eat, the nurse yelled, eat. They poured can after can in the feeder bag until my stomach and throat were so full that Ensure poured back out of my mouth and nose. I thought I was going to drown. If you throw up, a corpsman said, we'll start from the beginning with a new case and fill you up again. As I tried to break free, I noticed Desantis' handsome face among the crowd and at the other side of the chain link. He was watching me struggle. He was smiling and laughing with the other officers as I screamed in pain. I threw up in their direction. They jumped back, disgusted. I did not care. I was the only one there who had the right to be disgusted. That force feeding was inhumane. It was meant to break me and to teach me a lesson. It was meant to show me that I was just an animal with no human rights. There's no other way to call it. It was torture. Now, why he has to point out Ron DeSantis' handsome face, I don't know. But I guess he's just trying to make the point. He's like, I saw him. His handsome face out from a crowd. I saw him. You look at pictures of Ron DeSantis when he was younger. I guess he was an okay-looking guy. But
I don't know. I'm going to Google Ron DeSantis.
He just looks like a slightly thinner, younger version of what he is now. He wasn't an ugly guy by any means, but I don't know if I'd call handsome face. But whatever. Apparently, they go off on a little Ron DeSantis tangent. Apparently, he is such a fucking narcissist and such a fucking misogynist and such a fucking little bitch that when he would take women out on dates, I can't remember what word it was he would use, but he would deliberately mispronounce a word to see if she would correct him. And if his date would correct him, he would end the date because he didn't want to be with someone that would dare correct him.
What an asshole.
Like I would have.
Does he not realize that women correct you no matter what?
Yeah, no shit. Well, I guess his wife never corrects him. He found one of those that's willing to be submissive or whatever. Like fuck, if I didn't date women that corrected me, my relationship with my wife would have ended, about a day after it started.
Yeah,
because my wife corrects me all the fucking time, to the point where I gotta go. Could you not, please? Could you just not for once?
First time you meet her, hi, my name is Kevin. No, it's Kevin.
You said it wrong. Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Leviosa.
But his torture's not over yet. They then went on to mix laxatives into the bag, and then after the feeding, left him there, strapped to the chair, all night, soiled in his own waste and vomit. The next day, they started again. Others have said that they would come twice a day at various times to grab them, throw them in a chair, and feed them through a tube. Can you imagine going through all that shit and then they're just like, leave them. They give you laxatives for no reason. You're already on a liquid diet, so shitting's not going to be an issue. But they give you laxatives, and then they just leave you there.
That in itself is a torture, I think.
Yeah. But you don't have to go all the way down to Cuba for force feedings in America. No. You can get that locally sourced in Colorado, of all places.
Home of the Rocky Mountain Blues. Or whatever the hell the thing is. Or something to do with Coors Light or some shit. I don't know. It tastes like piss.
Specifically, The United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility in Florence, Colorado, otherwise known as the ADX, focusing mostly on the H unit, where hunger strikes were met with harsh force feedings. Quote, the PA does not pull the plastic tube after the feeding is completed gently. As a matter of fact, he pulls it out as if he's putting it out of a bull's nose. He was trying hard to force me to stop my hunger strike, and by any way of means, even if he causes me excessive pain. Force feeding occur in other U.S. prisons too, though it is unclear how often and where. State facilities have maintained the practice for decades, and the New York Times reported that detainees in ICE custody were force-fed after refusing to eat in protest of their indefinite detention. Just like the Federal Bureau of Prisons, ICE and state prison systems have hunger strike policies in place guiding how and when the procedure, which they term involuntary feeding, should be conducted. Yet experts believe that force feeding in the H unit may surpass those at any other site.
I like the way they turn it into what they want as long as it suits them, like the involuntary feeding thing. It's like, you know,
that's branding. That's what you have to do. It's branding.
Like what was, I can't remember which one of the people in earlier on they said it was like a form of rape almost, like, you know, which is true, like, you know, and it's like involuntary sex, you know, and then you can put that in front of nearly any involuntary death, you know, murderers, you know, like
it's involuntary penetration. No, that's rape. It's artificial. No, that's still rape. And listen, I could go on with dozens of personal stories of how horrible and painful and uncomfortable and inhumane these feedings are. But if you really want to see for yourself, you can actually go online, YouTube mostly, and watch it being done. There is a video of the rapper and Ford from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Mos Def, having it done voluntarily to him back in 2013, because that's when of the huge influx of Guantanamo Bay prisoners were getting force-fed. And so for Ramadan, he decided that he was going to go through what they were going through. So he volunteered for it. It is hard to watch because even though he's there knowing what's going to happen, letting them do it, he immediately, his body goes into this fight or flight response. And it's very hard to watch. But I'll post the link in our show notes. I'll probably end up posting the video up on our socials. So Dan, you have any pop culture references? Were you able to find any?
One of my most favoriteest pop culture references actually to date, which I will add as my background image now in 2 seconds. Okay,
fair enough.
Boom, there you go.
the Simpsons Hell episode with the donuts. I don't think that counts because he enjoyed it.
So, yeah, he's a force feeding them though. Yeah, it was the ironic punishment division.
I think of Gluttony from Seven.
Oh yeah. That's a brilliant one.
That's a good one.
Yeah. God damn it, that's hard. Such a great film. Taylor Swift sadly doesn't have any songs about hunger striking or anything like that, or about force feeding, but she did do a song for the Hunger Games, which doesn't count.
She must not have ever broken up with the guy who force fed her, or that she force fed. Otherwise, we'd have a song about it.
That's true. Obviously, Temple of the Dog did the hunger strike song, which isn't actually about actual striking, but it's a different thing. But yeah, there's plenty of it to do in Irish history as well, and to do with the troubles in Northern Ireland and all that stuff, to do with people hunger striking, and then there would have been a case of force feeding, obviously, and stuff like that. But yeah, there isn't. as much as I could see offhand, sadly, I can see like, and they're saying Wikipedia, tons of stuff to do with references to stuff, but I couldn't really think of any off my head because I remember seeing it in a show or a movie and I could not remember what it was, but I'll have to double check now because I should have had this up already.
Yeah, it's all right. Some people might be out there be screamed like, well, what about the animals that get force fed? Because that happens to animals a lot. This is a show about torturing human beings. I don't want to depress anybody by talking about torturing animals. All right, we're sick fucks, but we only go so far. Okay,
That's it.
I even posted in my Instagram posts when I'm covering what movie I watched for our 31 day of Halloween movie challenge, which you should go do, by the way. If the dog dies or not, so you just know going into it. All right, because I'm not a monster. I let you know. So.
Yeah, so yeah, have all the people in the world dying for all I care, and then as soon as an animal dies, it's like no.
Yeah. Jason, Michael, Freddy, Chucky, they can go on whatever killing spree they want. Second that fucking dog dies, you know what? Fuck you.
It's like I haven't played it yet, but the Blair Witch video game that came out there a couple of years ago, and I remember when that was being launched, and there's scenes of it like where you're walking and you have a dog with you, and everybody in the comments, the very first thing was, if anything happens to that dog, like fuck you. Like it is before anybody played the game. It was just announced. Everyone in the comments was like, if anything happens to that dog.
Yeah, I watched 3 movies in a row where the dog died. And I was like, what the fuck? The dog dies in Dead Alive, but it doesn't have the same feel of a dog dying in a movie like normal would, because it's funny.
Yeah.
Which I know sounds weird, but they make it funny. Like they pull the entire dog out of this lady's mouth. Like the whole dog is down her throat. It's a German Shepherd, and the whole dog is down her throat, and they pull the whole fucking thing out. And then you look over at the bed, and it's just covered in gore. The movie's fucking ridiculous. God damn it. Thank you to our patrons, Inquisitor Will Quinn Fowler, Inquisitor Jagavandi, and our torture noob MX Sinister 26. If you would like for us to read your email or read a DM on here, torturepod@gmail.com, or our socials are all at torturepod. Instagram, X, as Elon likes to call it now, you fucking idiot. All that.
I don't get that.
It's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Why? It's been Twitter for fucking years, and it was very famous, and you came along and renamed it and you fucking killed it. It's whatever. Head over to our YouTube page, where you can watch the show. I guess we have little snippets and shit. You can donate at our link tree or buymeacoffee.com/torturepod, or you can go to our Patreon, like Willow Quinn Fowler, Jagavani, and MX_26, and sign up there. Patreon.com/torturepod. First 7 days of the Cult Leader tier are free to try out. And also you can go buy merch, redbubble.com/people/torturepod. Dan's got the hoodie on. I got the hat on.
What do I have?
Oh, and the bacon. Fascination, a white room, and Ling Chi, and bacon. Hint for our next episode. Sometimes torture murder is family bonding. And we're going to get all true crimey on you next time, just so you know.
Oh.
And it's a dark one.
Oh,
Dan,
yeah.
any words of wisdom?
A couple of things. No matter how hungry you are on hunger strike, please refuse any sandwiches from Paul Bernardo. And don't be tempted by the McDonald's carbonara.
Dude, I forgot. Have you seen the 2020 version of Children of the Corn?
No, I haven't.
My God, I was watching it, and they're pumping in this gas to try to. A kid goes crazy and goes into this school or daycare or whatever, starts killing the adults that are in there. And to get him out, the adults in town start pumping gas into the building, and when they look at the tanker, it fucking says halothane on the side of it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Even while watching a movie, I can't get away from fucking Paul Bernardo. And then the kids go and use it on the adults later on in the movie. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Just soaking rags in it, sticking it in your face.
Stick it off.
Does this rag smell like halothane to you?
All right.
I might give away the cat with the Patreon as well.
Yeah. Everybody on Patreon knows your cat. Is that Smudge?
No, that's Sooty.
Oh, Sooty.
Because he's all black.
Oh, Smudge has white.
Yeah. And Smudge won't get up on my shoulders like this.
And then fall off. I guess it jumped off, but from here it looked like it
He got his back paw caught in the edge of my hoodie here.
Oh.
Just see the big scrape I have because of the asshole there. Where is it here? I got a massive one down my arm here somewhere. Yeah, you can't see it in the camera. But I have a big, huge one going down my arm where he jumped onto my back and then lost his balance and decided to jump off my back but was stuck to me. So he kind of scraped down me.
Yeah.
Like,
yep. Oh, fuck. All right, well, that's all we got. So take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and we'll see you.
Slán.
Thank you.